Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Exhuming the X Files here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, joined once again by Jeremy.
Hello, y'all.
And tonight we are talking episode seven of season three,
Seven.
called "The Walk," directed by Rob Bowman, written by John Shaban. So we're back to another military episode, Jeremy, and I'm always curious how you feel about these sorts of episodes because, of course, you served in the military, and I rely on you to tell me how accurate this information and things are that we see in this. So let's talk The Walk. What's this one all about?
So it begins with a military physician going over a lieutenant colonel's service record, and he's trying to figure out why this lieutenant colonel keeps trying to commit suicide. And all he has to say in response is, "He won't let me die."
Yeah,
Eventually, the doc gets up to go leave. The colonel ends up just bolting out of the room as soon as the physician goes, and makes his way down to the hydrotherapy room, which has a huge bolt lock on the inside and just this massive vat of water in the center of it
yeah. Looks
that
like a
you
big
can turn up.
jacuzzi.
But you can turn it up to he turns it up to 220 degrees. You should
Yeah,
know that I looked it up. A standard water heater in your house runs at 120 degrees, and they warn you that if it gets up to 140, it will just immediately scald your skin. So 220 is like a lot. And then he just, while they're trying to beat down the door, like he just jumps in. He puts weights in his pockets, but it's only like a hot tub. So anyway, he jumps in. Starts boiling himself alive, but he gets out, or they end up saving him because the ghost or whatever won't let him die opens the door and allows them in, and he's just his skin is sloughing off. They end up
looks gross.
Yeah, they put this little rubber mask over his face to kind of keep his skin attached to his skull. He's like, "I told you, he won't let me die." It's like, you don't have to boil yourself, dude. You're a lieutenant colonel. Just go down to the arms room, grab a fucking gun, and just blow your head off. They will let you do that.
Okay.
And then we get the title screen.
Cool opening, I thought. I mean, it gets you into what the hell are we seeing here. I like the concept and the idea that there's somebody being like, "Look, there's something here that just won't let me die." Like, um, yeah, I don't know. I like this opening intro. What did you think?
I mean, I think there are a lot better ways to do yourself quick, fast, and in a hurry
Oh, I
that
agree
doesn't
with that.
involve getting into a boiling pot of water.
I mean,
Just
look, lobster. He wanted to lobsterify himself.
okay. Yeah, you don't get the flavor unless you do it while they're still alive. So okay, understood. Um, so they're or then the FBI. I don't even know who calls them on this one. They it's
Yeah,
just the
I wrote that
it
down.
was
I was like,
weird,
"How did they show up here?"
and it starts going through military protocol almost immediately because they are interviewing Lieutenant Colonel Rubberface. Um, he says that he's complaining that whatever won't let him die burned his family alive. And then this JAG officer, Adjutant General officer, walks in and says, "What are you guys doing here?"
Yeah,
Like FBI and the FBI, or they start swinging their FBI dick around. It's like, it doesn't fucking matter. This is the military. We have our own court system. We have our own lawyer system. We have our own police force. Like, and it's all true. They're not gonna let the FBI just walk in and start talking to people. There's zero authority. They're not gonna let civilian police force. It's all covered by the Uniform Code of Military Justice. You go to Leavenworth or Fort Leavenworth to go to prison in the military. You don't go to normal prison. So she rightfully just tells them to get the fuck out. And Scully just starts saying, "Well, I want to talk to his commanding officer."
Yeah.
At this point, this JAG lady has every right to just call the MPs and say, "You're leaving this post right now." But instead, humors them, and
Yeah,
they start saying stupid shit. Like, go ahead.
I wrote down Scully is just giving it to this military chick. Like, because when I watched, I was like, well, they have the full right and authority to get these FBI agents out of here. And I was actually surprised Scully is like not having it at all. But then I did have like, as Scully's like giving it to this lady, my comment here, they show a reaction of Mulder's face. And I just said, they show Mulder's face and he's like fully erect because he's like looking at her like, this is take charge. My fiance did this once. We were, quick side story, we were looking at a house to rent, and the landlord was just spewing some bullshit, and she just fucking turned on this guy. This guy wilted like a flower in front of her, and I was like, "Oh my god, baby!" Like,
I'm
Jesus
so
Christ!
hot for you right now.
Yes,
Nice. And it would help that both that JAG officer and Scully are pretty hot. They were both easy on the eyes.
yeah,
And then Scully starts saying who's this person's commanding officer? Well, it's generals so and so. It's like, well, if I want to talk to that person, you can't. Well, if I want to talk to that person's boss, who would I go to? It's the president of the fucking United States. Like,
yeah.
get out.
Why wouldn't they just
So,
have somebody escort them out, like get some soldiers to
it would.
walk up and?
At the moment that they pulled them out in the hallway, like MPs would have already been called.
Yeah.
They would have escorted them off the base, and that would have been the end of this episode. But the JAG officer decides to humor them and let them go talk to the weirdo general, because generals in this world and high-ranking military brass in general have a tendency to drink whiskey and stare out of windows, and that's all they do for work.
Yeah. I
As
call
was
this
this.
guy Clearance Rack Ed Harris. That's what he looked like to me.
Yeah, because in the reflection, I was like, "Oh my god, did they get Ed Harris?" And then he
Yeah.
turned around and he was skeleton skinny. I remember having a very similar thought. Um, so they talk briefly to the general. He doesn't have anything to say. He's like, "You guys are talking about some weird shit. We got this handled. We will handle this." But they somehow convince him that at least let us do an investigation of some type. And he doesn't really consent to it, but they do it anyway. They go down to the what is it, the lobster pot room,
Yeah.
and while Scully is talking, Mulder's like looking in the stew pot, checking the fire alarm. Like he's just you can see Mulder is jumping to the conclusion that there's something really fucking bizarre
Yeah.
going on here.
There's a ghost or something doing it.
Yeah, always. But then we get back to the general, and the general is briefly threatened by a reflection, a ghost that was standing in his doorway. That when he whips around, is no longer there.
Yeah. Someone not named Nietzsche. Because we haven't seen this already. This same trope done already 2 episodes ago.
Okay, so I don't. You know what? I don't know what the name of the guy that is genuinely at fault. I just call him Limbless. And every time I mention
Leonard. His name's Leonard.
Oh, well, I just wanted to call him Not Nietzsche.
Okay. Not Nietzsche.
So Not Nietzsche threatens him, and he whips around. Nobody's there. He tells the JAG officer to go home. She doesn't. She goes for a swim, and it kind of bummed me out. The girl was hot, and we just didn't get like gratuitous swim shoot shots. Listen, I've seen Mulder's penis in a Speedo. Like, give me a little eye candy, but we don't. She gets in the pool and she gets drowned.
It looks cool.
Yeah, it does look cool, but it's where I'd already kind of had problems with the episode about when Scully starts like throwing her weight around that she doesn't have. But then, like, you're getting the idea that this is being caused by this dude who has no arms and no legs. He really, really hates the leadership that forced him and his guys to die. And, there's PTSD with that. There's the wanting of revenge or justice in this world. And all of that I can understand. um, taking their families away by burning them alive. Like, okay, but they said that this girl, this JAG officer, like she didn't have a family. The military was her family.
Yeah.
So he just kills another fellow soldier because he was mad at this general. I don't know.
Yeah, that
I
I sort of thought that as well because it's just like the same thing with the list where it's like, well, why did this person die? They didn't really have anything to do with what's going on. Same thing here. They're kind of going back to that well of this person didn't really have anything to do with this guy, but he's still gonna be an asshole and kill her anyway. I think the concept was he's just trying to kill everybody that these people care about. So he's keeping them alive to realize to suffer, whether it's the family member, maybe this general had a close relationship with this girl. We don't see it. There's not enough screen time for it, but I have to assume, I guess, that this general was, you know, really into this girl. And now she's dead and he's going to be miserable about it.
I guess he doesn't seem to be that broken up about it.
Right, right.
We cut to this guy's kid. This general has like an 8 to 10 year old boy, and he is old as dirt. Like by the time you're a general, you're 20 years plus into the military already. So probably a lot more than that. You're reaching 30, 40 years. But he has this young kid and this old ass wife. The mail comes to the slot. He, instead of this kid getting up and just grabbing the mail and goes setting it on a counter, he's like, "Mom, the mail's here." And I remember saying it out loud, and I think it's just because I have 2 kids in my life now. I'm like, get get off your lazy ass and go get that mail for your mother. And but that doesn't happen. And then all of a sudden, this dude just shows up and starts like grabbing up the mail in front of this little kid. He starts screaming. The guy runs out the back. The kid starts screaming for mom. Mom shows up, doesn't see anybody. The dude gets like out in the backyard or something to go hide, and then the general comes home with Mulder and Scully because he has these audio recordings from his answering machine that sound like demonic stuff.
Yeah.
And he heard that same thing the night that the girl was killed in the pool. He goes into the front door, and this is what I wrote. The general is completely dismissive of his hysterical wife upon returning home, and this is the only believable army part of this episode so far.
Yeah, she's freaking out. And he's like, I'll talk to you
Yeah,
upstairs.
yeah.
Go
Go
upstairs.
do the dishes. You
Yeah.
got some laundry to do. Okay, I could buy this. So he lets them listen into the demonic chants. He sends them with the tape. Scully is looking out a window and she sees Roach, this guy that's been wheeling not Nietzsche around this hospital and kind of taking care of him. And you feel like this Roach guy, who's a nurse at the hospital, for some reason owes not Nietzsche, and that's why he's helping him out. He stole the mail. When he's running through the backyard, he leaves footprints in this kid's 5x5 sandbox, so they have evidence that somebody was there.
Yeah.
He couldn't have just like veered slightly left or right to not leave sandprint or stuff in the backyard, but okay.
He was just panicked. He wasn't thinking, Jeremy. He was not thinking.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't doing a good job of it anyway. So he's stealing this mail for not Nietzsche to touch, so that he has some sort of psychic connection to the locations he needs to project his ghost self to
Yeah.
in order to kill people. Is basically what you're getting out of this.
Yeah, like it's like an astral projection sort of thing, but that's something that confused me during the episode because like, well, he's never been here before or whatever, or he has been here and so he's going to kill me, he's going to kill me. But I'm like, how does this work exactly? Like how does having a piece of mail suddenly make it so that he knows the layout of the location and where everything is? that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that male hadn't spent any time at that house by the time he grabbed it. Like,
Yeah.
for all you know, he could have been projecting himself to the fucking post office or inside of the mailbox or the truck, or it was thin. It was thin, like some of these episodes have a tendency to get
Yeah.
sometimes. But they find some fingerprints inside of the house. That leads them to Roach. They arrest Roach. They think that they got him. Scully, of course, being the skeptic, thinks that they have their man.
Yeah.
There's nobody else involved in this. Um,
Mulder still believes there's ghosts running around.
yeah, of course, because we wouldn't have an episode of otherwise. We cut back, and the kid that was yelling about the mail earlier, he's in the sandbox out back, and this is the deepest sandbox in the history of kids. Like, the kid is so deep in the ground, it's basically a grave.
Yeah.
My sandboxes I saw were about 6 inches deep, not
Yeah.
like 4 feet fucking deep.
Yeah. The idea is you don't want the kids to become buried in the sand.
Right.
That's what a beach is for.
But they have an MP that's like watching the house, and he knows the kid by name. He's about to go have a smoke break. The kid is playing with stuff, and then as the guy is smoking, he gets buried and dies so quickly that the MP that's right next to him, that almost immediately finds his hand and immediately uncovers him, is unable to save his life.
Yeah. See, this blows your theory from Too Shy out of the water. When I said, why didn't he just kill that blind girl to protect himself? And he said, well, they wouldn't kill a kid, standards and practices and all that stuff, and Fox, but they literally kill a kid the next episode.
They did,
They drown
but
him in sand.
they don't show it happening.
Right.
There's not an implied liquefaction. None of their parents have died. There isn't the innocence of being a little girl that was a thing back then, and probably still is in our culture to some extent. And they don't really say that the kid had died until, like, it's a one-off remark in a following scene
Yeah.
that Trevor is dead. And I think that's all they say to remark what happened to this little kid.
Yeah, because it cuts to commercial break, because you just see when the MP goes over and looks, you just see like the kid's still hand coming out of the sand. He's clearly been buried, and then it immediately cuts to like fade to black for commercial break.
Then they're grilling while they're grilling the mailman about what had happened, like, how did you kill this kid in the backyard while you were here? Which was some of the dumbest questioning I've seen. We find out Trevor's dead. Roach ends up going back to his cell. He starts losing his shit because he's like, you gotta let me out of here, man. Not Nietzsche knows where this cell is at, and he's gonna come here and kill me. And the guard outside his door is like, I will warn you one last time. And he keeps on just going ape shit in his cell. And what the guard does is leaves.
Yeah.
He leaves his guard post, goes down to the end of the hall, and just shuts the doors so he doesn't have to hear it anymore. And what that results in is that Roach gets his bed sheets stuffed down his own throat to kill him.
Dead as a doornail. Poor Roach.
So they start figuring out that Leonard, not Nietzsche, is the ghost. Mulder goes to him, and Leonard almost immediately basically confesses everything that has happened. Like, all of these people. Yeah, it was a cool scene.
I think this guy who played Leonard did a really good job. He was just like, so like, fuck you to everybody that I bought. If I had lost both, or all four of my limbs or whatever, I'd probably be in rage and be blaming people and all kinds of stuff, and just having to be kind of like stuck in that state for the rest of your life. And he's like a young man, right? He's a young soldier. And I think at some point he mentions, he's like, I got nothing. Like, I got nothing in life. There's nothing left for me. I'm just going to be basically bedridden for the rest of my life for the next 50 years. He pulled off the rage element of that really well, I thought.
He did. He was very menacing in that scene.
Yeah.
I
love that Mulder just comes straight out and tells him, like, Your ghost is killing people. You're astral projecting.
And he doesn't even try to deny it. He just
Yep.
starts talking about how those people all had it coming to him.
Yep.
And then we cut back to General is talking to his wife, and he's still not broken up, even though his son has died. But his wife clearly is. She's
Yeah.
cleaning up toys of his. You were always so mad when he would leave him out, and now he's never going to leave.
Go
And
upstairs, woman. We'll talk about this later.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. This is how he's been handling her, which again, completely believable relationship in the army. I'm totally. I believe that happens. So not Nietzsche starts going into a seizure mode because he's projecting himself to the general's house. He ends up killing the general's wife, thankfully off screen, but it's kind of bloody. And the general sees it, and he has this moment where he finally feels the rage. The rage overwhelms him.
Yeah.
He pulls out his chrome Beretta with the cherrywood handles. That was a sweet looking pistol, by the way. Loads it, goes down to the hospital. He's clearly going to go, or he knows what to do. Well, no, he doesn't know what to do yet.
No, because
He's get,
remember the lobster
yeah,
boy. He basically tells him, or he goes and talks to him. He's like, I know who it was, because he's gonna kill Lobster Boy. And he's like, I know who it was, or whatever, and that's who tells him, because we some point in the past, earlier portion of the episode, I don't remember exactly when it happens, but Lobster guy, he like recognizes not Nietzsche and is like, oh God, I don't exactly know how he realized that not Nietzsche was the person doing this, but he's like in the hallway and he looks over at him or something. Their eyes connect and he realizes that's the guy who's actually doing everything.
so yeah, he talks to Rubberface Lieutenant Colonel. Lieutenant Colonel knows who he is because he was going to shoot himself right in front of the
Oh
Lieutenant
yeah,
Colonel,
yeah, that's
but it's
right.
just click, click, click. The gun just won't shoot. So he goes, or he finds out through the Lieutenant Colonel who Limbless or not Nietzsche is. He goes into his room to wipe him out, and instead of shooting him, he ends up just emptying the magazine into the wall above the bed. And he's like, "You're gonna suffer in jail for what you've done. I'm not gonna be your executioner." He walks out. He hands his gun over to Mulder and Scully, and says, "It's him. Just make sure that do what you need to do or whatever." And then I wrote, contrary to what the writers would have you believe, even a general would not be able to discharge a firearm in a military hospital without being arrested.
Yeah,
It,
yeah, that's that makes sense. I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah,
so, not Nietzsche goes back into seizure mode to go after the general back in the basement. Mulder leaves the room to go find the general because he recognizes what is happening. Um, he General ends up having to go down to the steam room again, only with extra steam because the ghost man, not Nietzsche, is just like popping steam pipes all over the place so they could use kind of this lame ass ghost in the mist effect at the end of the
yeah.
episode.
So you can see the astral projection like bouncing around and going through things.
Yeah. And they're trying, like, at the same time, Scully and the nurses are trying to treat not Nietzsche because he's going into cardiac arrest because of what's happening. But Lieutenant Colonel Rubberface shows up and smothers him with a pillow,
Yeah,
which is a throwback to the list.
yeah. There's a lot of similarities to this in the list.
Well, that's three pillow smotherings in the last 2 episodes, 3 episodes,
Yeah,
3 episodes. So, and you said how many people died? 9 people died in that episode.
yeah, in the list.
1, 2, 3, 4 people die in this episode. So that's 9 plus 4 is 13. So 3 out of 13 people die from pillow smothering.
Yeah, it's a cheap, easy
This
way
year.
to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Not that I would know.
But, your wife would talk you down so quickly. No way. So he smothers the guy. The general ends up not dying because his ghost ends up going away. Mulder has this weird uh, what do you narration piece at the end where he begins with he didn't want to kill his victims, but he's like he killed a lot of people.
He did, but remember, his main goal was to kill the people around the people he was truly trying to victimize, so they have to live the rest of their lives with, the weight of all the death around them. Like, oh, my wife's dead, my kid's dead, the grief and all of that. He wanted like the general and Lobster Man and whoever else I'm blanking at the moment. He wanted them to have to live like him the rest of his life. He blamed them for basically because we find out that Roach was it an order that Roach was given or something that basically caused him and his like to lose his limbs. And so he blamed all of them for putting him in that position, having to live the rest of his life like that
Mm.
and the mental toll that would be. So he's killing everybody around him. So to put them in that sort of situation. My question was the general doesn't kill him. And the general's like, no, you're going to have to live like this the rest of your life. But then Lobster Man comes in and kills him. So basically going against what the general actually wanted just in order for them to actually die. I think Lobster Man was the selfish party in this because Lobster Man just wants to bake himself again in that hot water, and he wouldn't have been able to die this time if um, the Leonard was still alive. That's my hot take. I think Lobster Man's the true villain.
All he did was jump into a pot of hot water.
Okay, so yeah, that is that is what's the name of this episode? The Walk. There we go. There are two things that I thought were funny that I kind of wanted to mention. When Mulder and Scully first walk in to Leonard's room and they're interrogating him, and Leonard never comes out and says, "Hey, I didn't do this," right? He's just kind of playing with Mulder and stuff. And, oh, that would be real bad if this sure happened to these assholes that put me into this situation, right? Mulder doesn't get pissed off until he confronts him. He's like, "I know you can leave your body and you can go do things. I know it." And then not Nietzsche Leonard says he looks over another eye fucking of Scully by a character in these shows. He's like, if I could leave my body, I know exactly what I would do. And then, looking at Scully, I'm like, what is with all these writers every single episode, essentially writing a gross male character leering at Scully and basically, intimating the things that they would do to her. It's just now it's like a thing that's happening over and over and over every single episode. And then I like the line that Mulder says to Scully when she does not believe that there's a ghost. She doesn't believe there's astral projection or anything like that. And this line that Mulder says actually seems to apply to today. And he says, sometimes the only sane response to an insane world is insanity, which I thought was actually a really good line. So, yeah, your thoughts on The Walk?
I wasn't thrilled about the military stuff, but I mean, it was what it was. It wasn't the worst X Files episode I've ever seen. It was fine for what it is. I thought the special effects kind of sucked, and the motivations behind some of the people getting killed, how they got killed, was sketchy. But overall, completely watchable episode.
Yeah, I kind of thought that this was just slightly over okay. Like, I think on a different day, I might be swayed that this was actually kind of a bad episode. But I think overall, like, I like the guy, the not Nietzsche guy. I thought he did a really good job. I like the idea that he's trying to take revenge. If I'm comparing this to the list, it's like they're so similar. They're both about guys trying to get revenge on people who wronged them. One is like a literal ghost. The other is just astral projecting his ghost, and they're doing the same things. I think the list is better. It works better for me than this does. But then again, I kind of like the whole. I didn't mind the military angle because I felt it gave not Nietzsche the a valid reason from my sort of like civvy perspective as to why he'd be angry at like leadership, right? Because I'm sure there's plenty of times when soldiers follow orders, right? And they might not agree with those orders, and those orders might put them in a really bad spot. In this case, the guy lost his limbs, and I understood why he'd be angry at his superiors and trying to put them through the same kind of trauma that he went through. So I appreciated that, but at least this wasn't back to back with the list. That's
Oh
that's usually
God,
something that's usually something X Files has been doing is they're putting like two similar episodes back to back, and we've noted that in the past. But yeah, overall, it's okay. It's all right. I'm kind of with you on that. I don't think it's anything like super special, but not a horrible watch or anything like that.
for sure.
So, just some quick tidbits about this one. The Walk was filmed in June 1995, written by John Chabon, making it his first contribution to the series. Being new to the series, he found the episode challenging to write, particularly at the beginning, where Mulder and Scully have to come together on a case, yet they have to be at odds. He was inspired by the film The Men from 1950 about a World War II lieutenant who is seriously injured in combat and wants nothing more than to be able to walk again. He eventually connected this desire with the parapsychological concept of astral projection, and the two, quote, just sort of fit, unquote. Some members of the writing staff were concerned about killing Callahan's young son Trevor, but Chabon was not bothered by it and felt that Rappo wanted to take everything from Callahan, and the worst blow would be to kill his son. Um, Director Rob Bowman felt that Ian Tracy, who plays Rappo, was an incredibly strong actor who fit the role. Daryl Hayes, who played the Army psychiatrist in this episode, previously appeared as a CIA operative in the first season episode Shadows. Draper's drowning scene required actress Nancy Sorrell to be yanked underwater by a discrete cable connected to the floor of the pool. The effect of a wave overtaking Draper was created by special effects department members Matt Beck and David Gauthier. And for the scene in which Trevor is killed, one of the show's stuntmen was buried in sand and burst out on cue. The shot was then digitally augmented in post production. So there's some fun facts about this episode. Stay tuned next time. As you can probably hear, I feel like my voice is going out. Like hopefully by the next episode, I'll still have a voice. But hit that like and subscribe button. Come back next week where we are going to talk about Oubliette, episode 8 of season 3. Say goodbye, Jeremy.
Goodbye, everybody.